Hey there, Careblazers. Welcome back to the place where we talk about everything dementia. Dr. Natalie here, and in today's video, I want to share with you a comment I recently received from a Careblazer, Debbie. Debbie writes, I have a question regarding my mother who has frontotemporal dementia. I moved her to an assisted living facility in March 2017 after a fall, broken hip, and rehab. Throughout that process, multiple doctors, physical therapists, and her neurologist recommended that she not live alone. The question is this: although she was told a month or so prior to moving to assisted living that it was a permanent move, and she was involved in the process of choosing what furniture, possessions, and clothing to take with her, she has said ever since arriving that she didn't realize it was permanent. At any rate, she wants to go home and go through all of her possessions and see her house. Is it best to just let her go home again and hope she will eventually adjust to her new home? I am so torn, but am at the end of my rope with the anger, yelling, and name-calling when she doesn't get her way. If you are struggling with whether or not to allow your loved one who is currently in a care facility to go home and visit their old home, stay tuned. And if you haven't joined the Careblazer family, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your screen for your free weekly updates, tips, support, and information from your fellow Careblazer family. As with most questions related to dementia, there is no one right answer that can apply to every situation. There are different types of dementia, different personalities, different severities of dementia. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over 6 signs that if your loved one is showing a few of these signs, it would suggest that it is not a good idea to take your loved one who's currently in a care facility and take them to their former home just to visit, because you might find yourself in a situation where your loved one refuses to go back to the care facility. So here are the 6 signs. Sign 1 is that your loved one doesn't think they belong in a nursing home or an assisted living facility. Sign 2, your loved one makes comments about not wanting to be in a nursing home or assisted living facility. Sign 3, your loved one has made an attempt or continues to make attempts and have been caught trying to leave their current care facility without approval. Sign 4, when you've taken your loved one out of the facility for other outings such as appointments, lunch, etc., they don't want to come back, or you have to work hard to convince them to go back to their care facility. Sign 5, when you've talked to your loved one about a care facility in the past, they were hesitant, resistant, and it took a miracle to get them to the current care facility. And sign 6, you have a gut feeling that your loved one would not want to return to the care facility, but you're still considering taking them to their former home because you feel guilty for not being able to do what they want, or because you think it's going to help your loved one from saying mean things to you about not taking them back to their former home. This is usually not a good reason to do something. If your loved one doesn't seem to be making comments that they want to leave their care facility, they have friends at their care facility, they're engaged in all of the activities that the care facility has to offer, then the risk is much lower of them not wanting to return. However, I'm guessing that if that sounds like your loved one's also not repeatedly asking to go visit their former home. In this Careblazer's case, her mother has mentioned wanting to go through possessions in her home. And when this Careblazer has brought her mother boxes of possessions to go through in the care facility, her mother hasn't even opened the boxes to go through them, suggesting that it's really not about the possessions at all, it's really more about getting back home. Also, in this Careblazer's case, it sounds like her mother, who has mentioned to her she wants to go and sort through possessions, this Careblazer has actually brought her mother boxes of possessions to go through together in the care facility, but her mother never has opened any of those boxes and has not wanted to sort through them in the care facility. So that's another sign that this particular person with dementia is not necessarily interested in going through the possessions, but is more interested in getting back to her former home. Also, at the end of this Careblazer's comments, she talks about being so frustrated and she doesn't know how much more she can take of her mother's comments and negativity about not taking her back to the former home. So that also tells me that last sign in there about you have a gut feeling it's not a good idea to take your loved one back to the former house, but because of the verbal abuse you're getting, you're thinking about doing it in hopes that that's going to stop. But what ends up happening for a lot of Careblazers is that they find themselves in a really difficult situation when they take their loved one back to their former home and realize they can't get them or convince them to get back in the car to go back to the care facility. So before you decide to take your loved one who's showing some of the signs that I discussed back to their former home, take a minute and think about whether you would be able to resume providing care to your loved one if they refuse to get back in the car and go back to the care facility. Would you literally be able to physically pick them up, put them in a car, transport them safely in a car back to the place that they don't want to go? Chances are probably not. So you have to prepare that the worst could happen, and there's going to be a period of time when you might have to be providing some care to your loved one in their former home as you try to sort through and figure out ways to get them back to their care facility. What ends up happening for a lot of Careblazers in a situation where their loved one is refusing to go back to the care facility and they want to stay at home is that oftentimes something tragic happens, like their loved one falls and breaks a hip, they end up in the hospital, and then from the hospital, they're able to transfer directly to a care facility, similar to what happened to this Careblazer's mother in the first place. Careblazers, sometimes the hardest thing to do in caring for your loved one with dementia is making the decisions that are difficult, but that are in your loved one's best interests, that are in your loved one's safest interests, even when your loved one doesn't quite believe it themselves. So you're the brunt of a lot of their resentment and anger, and they don't see that you're actually doing what's best for them. It's probably one of the hardest things that comes along with doing the work that you're doing. I do want to mention that this Careblazer in particular was a part of a dementia caregiver support group who had been supporting her and giving her reinforcement and encouraging her in her decision to not bring her mother back to her former home. Sometimes when you're in difficult situations, surrounding yourself with people who can understand what you're going through and can relate to your difficulties can make all the difference. So if you don't have a good support system around you, try to search for a good caregiver dementia support group near you that maybe you can join and be involved with. Careblazers, let me know by leaving a comment below what you do to handle comments like this from your loved one. If your loved one is constantly asking to go back home or constantly saying they don't want to be at their current care facility, what do you do to help respond to those comments? Leave a comment below and help your other Careblazers out. Also, as a reminder, you can leave a comment or a question beneath any of my videos on YouTube or over on my Facebook page called Dementia Careblazers, and I will do my best to answer your question or comment in a future video. Okay, Careblazers, until next week, bye.